G'day everybody and welcome to yet another edition of our monthly market update with Simon Brown. My name is Dineo and as always we're bringing you a market wrap, but this month we're going to keep the market wrap stuff a bit short and we're trying a new formula where we're just going to be discussing the high level stuff. A lot of interesting things happened in April actually. And so we're just going to discuss the things that I thought were interesting. And Simon, you can point out anything else. And then we're going to discuss, because it's May, and all the May memes come out. But the one thing I must say more than any other year I have seen this year is sell in May and go away. So Simon and I are going to be discussing the sell in May and go away argument and come back in
October.
Yes.
And they're all prevalent because you've had a really good start to the year.
Yeah, so I keep seeing it and I was like, what is going on? What's so different about this year? But before we delve into that, I want to just have a look at the all share. So in April, the Rand made some interesting moves. So we opened beginning of April at 14 Rand 15, closed at 14 Rand 29. Hit a low of 13 Rand 91 cents, high of 14 Rand 43. As always, there's always a lot of news that comes with a moving Rand, but the thing that was reflected in the market is that financials were up 4.4%, whereas they were down in March. Financials were up 6.6%, as opposed to down 4% in March, and what was up 4.4% in March were resources, but they were down 2%. So interesting movement there. Yeah. And Simon, can we just tackle that? First of all, maybe resources. I know we always talk about resources, but it's quite an interesting change because they've done so well.
They've had a really, really good start to the year.
Yeah.
And I think some of the Rand, our Rand is just volatile, and it's currently been volatile within a fairly smallish range, and mostly driven actually by dollar strength.
Yes.
In other words, everybody else is in the same boat. We've been driven by the dollar. I think there was just some good old-fashioned, some profit-taking, some concerns around the currency and that it impacts on resources. We also saw what looked like perhaps finally a run in platinum that doesn't seem to have followed through. We had a massive knockdown in palladium. Platinum shot up, and then so maybe that was the beginning of the change, and it turned out not. But broadly, the resi remains looking strong. A negative month is not ideal, but it's been strong through the course of the year, and in fact it's been strong over a couple of years. And it was looking a little weak perhaps in January. A couple of folks were saying it was looking like it was going to roll over, and it didn't. It moved higher. The one that's really caught me is the Finny, and I remember we spoke last month, and I said that I'd just got a position in it. And it's ungeared, it's the ETF, the Satrix and stuff. And the financials are looking strong. They're technically looking strong. Fundamentally, we've spoken before, they are cheap on most metrics, and they really are looking past the election, which is now days away, and saying, the election's going to go smoothly because we're really good at elections in South Africa.
Even though the ending strike.
Yeah, no. But broadly we do it, and that the investors are going to like it. And whether, the debate whether the ANC needs a strong mandate or not, I think is largely media created more than anything. But certainly the financials have been responding and will be. Them and SA Inc. will be the winners post-election, although I think probably financials first, SA Inc. Yes, but SA Inc.'s got to start getting those numbers. Whereas the financials have held on in really, really tough economic times. They've been doing single-digit growth, but they've been doing it.
Yeah. The one industry I want to perhaps focus on is telecoms, because telecom up 16.3%. So we've seen some great numbers.
Yeah.
MTN 16.6%. I mean, geez. it's been a while since MTN has sort of put a smile on anyone's face, really. But yeah, should we expect more of this from
So
Telkom?
Telkom, I give up on that stock. If you look at the chart, it's just like it's trying to break through the top of your computer, and it just isn't
just goes.
stopping.
Yeah.
It's expensive, but it's been expensive for like, I don't know, a year, and that hasn't stopped it going a whole heck lot higher. The other two telcos, in particular Vodacom and MTN, are, to my mind, were a bit confusing because we had Competition Commission coming out and hating on their data
Yes, and
pricing.
saying you guys are, charging
And the
people
way
too much.
the reason why we have cheaper mobile telephone calls is because of ICASA stepping in, is because of regulatory, and that was particularly the least cost routing. It's killing the least cost routing industry, but call termination rates, which at some points in our history have been north of R2 and are now literally a couple of cents, and but that had to be, we had to have glide paths put in place by ICASA and all of those regulations. And I think our telcos are at risk of getting the same in their data space. We've now done the fact that data can be rolled over, etc., within terms and conditions, and MTN tried to charge, Vodacom wanted to charge for the right. But I still hold, I don't like telcos. I think they're utilities. I think they need to come to their senses and re-rate accordingly, and realize that they sell us data and they're going to sell us a lot of it at low prices.
So I think that's been my perspective, right? Yes, there's a concern but I personally know that if data was cheaper, I would be using so much more of it.
Yeah,
And I mean, last month I was busy, I was watching Billions, I was on a streak, and then my data ran out, and now I couldn't do anything, and I wasn't done watching Billions, and I was a bit like,
now
this
what?
is, I can't do anything. But if it was cheaper, I'd A, be watching a lot more than Billions, and B, trust me, I would,
They might. So the problem that telcos have is by making it cheaper, they don't get more cash out of you necessarily. They give you more data.
Yeah.
But the core base is that beyond the capex expense, and their problem is now we're rolling into 5G, and then there'll be 6 and 7. So they're constantly in these new Gs, and there's a constant capex requirement. But once your capex is done, data is broadly a very, very. It doesn't. They're not costing them tons of money to make a gig of data to sell
it's
to us.
the infrastructure.
What they start to do, though, is that data becomes more and more of a utility, such as water, such as electricity, such as those sort of Maslow's pyramid-based type of scenarios. Once you've gone through clothing,
Getting
food,
there.
once you've gone through clothing, food, and shelter, those really start coming into that equation. And I think they need to, instead of like Cell C spending R1 billion on their Black initiative, and both MTN and Vodacom trying different, including mobile money, which might get a bit of traction, but a hugely competitive space. What I view these companies at, which is as utilities, they are incredibly expensive. MTN has, of course, last week announced their new board. The biggest thing it tells us, with former Minister Jonas now going in as the new chair, is that Putinani came back with the first Nigerian fine, and that the sense is that is now behind them. That saga is done, and they also now have a board of, what do they call it? It's like it's like former President Mbeki. It's the former president of Ghana. It's someone from the.
So all the people who have dealt with the Nigerian government at a.
It's basically a lobby group.
Yeah, I'm a bit. I think it's a great move. It's reassuring for investors. Effective?
No, I don't.
I just don't feel we're working.
Well, they're going to get better communication. So their board, the actual board, includes the former central bank governor of Nigeria as well. And that I mean, he's obviously got some
great.
contacts.
Yeah.
He can make some phone calls.
I will suspend. I will try to suspend my skepticism.
No, I agree with you, because what happens if the problem is in Cameroon and they've got the previous governor from Nigeria? You've got the wrong governor.
Yeah.
But it does suggest to us that they as a group think that their troubles are behind them. They're back on the bandwagon to list MTN Nigeria in Nigeria, which is part of that probably the final closing of the whole sorry saga until there's another sorry saga.
Because, yeah, this is Nigeria after all. Okay, so I think that's pretty much been like the standout performers. Large and mid caps, large and small caps did very well. Mid caps not so well, but I think, you know, in the bigger scheme of things, we're still doing relatively well.
We're having
year to date,
our best year to date since like 87 or something like
so
that.
still double digits, 12.5.
And a good start to the year, which I wasn't convinced about because of the election in May. I was more worried, but I've said before, the election's been fairly moderately mature and fairly quiet and hasn't been as ugly as I anticipated it was going to be.
It's been very decent.
It's like we're grown-ups. It's
like
our democracy is 25.
Now.
We know how to rock this stuff. And obviously markets are positioning themselves. You know.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see the immediate reaction. We've obviously seen all sorts of polls. I personally don't think they're particularly accurate because we've just got an immature polling system in the country.
Yeah, and polling in of itself is not the science that and Trump and Brexit taught us that.
And those are advanced polling
and that
countries.
with respect, that wasn't a failure of polling. That was a failure of our expectation of polling. If you've got a 2-horse race, your margin of error is probably 3 to 4%. And if you've got one person winning by less than 3 to 4%, it basically means either side could win. And particularly in America, where there were a couple of states where 20,000 votes was the difference in 2 or 3 states. Polling is not the exact science. And the key point is that what we have, and this is across all democracies, all voting scenarios, your majority of your voters, 89% of your voters, pretty much vote one way for most of their life. And that's that small sector of swing voters, and most times they're making up their minds literally in the days leading up to the election.
Or
as they... but don't do that, hey. Top tip, 48 parties on that ballot paper. You ain't got time to make that decision in the...
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
You're not going to have time to Google them all.
Okay, so thank you for the market wrap. Sell in May, go away, come back in October? Or on St. Leger's Day?
So I mean, the idea of using nursery rhymes to define my investment philosophy is like weak.
So it is weak, but we've got the do it because it works, and as always, there's data to back it up, and the don't do it because it doesn't work.
So historically, the May, June, July, August, and to a lesser degree September months give you a less good return than the October, December, January, February, March, and April months. That, to a fair degree, is summer holidays in the Northern Hemisphere, where much of America, particularly in August, America
turns off.
They just turn off. So volumes die down to a degree.
Because everyone's on holiday.
So the better returning months are typically clustered around the year end and the new year rather than the middle of the year, and you will find a lot of websites that go in and carefully pick their data. If you take like 100 plus years data, typically it doesn't work, but this also makes a couple of very stark assumptions. So the first is when in May. So is it the 30th of April or the 1st of May? When in May are you selling? After Ledger's Day, I need to Google who Ledger is and what their day is.
It's a UK day.
But then there's other issues which are not taken into account, which is cost of transaction, which is call it 1% on the out and 0.75% when you're selling, and then with STT 1% when you're coming back in. Spreads to cross, tax individuals, so assuming some CGT in the whole process. And then there have been some periods of the May to Ledger's Day which have been incredibly strong. And what we know from data is that if you miss just over an investment lifetime, if you miss sort of the top dozen performing days over that 30, 40, 50-year investment time frame, you get significantly inferior returns in the process. So yeah, I if we're going to start doing it in rhymes, then we should have a rhyme for every month. But anyone I can come up with is prune in June.
Yeah, so we've got one. Don't sell in May and go away, sell in June as May's too soon.
Okay,
so I got that from the Telegraph.
You went with the whole like it. You know, I'm a fan of simplistic strategies. I think this one's perhaps a little too simplistic in a sense, and I think needs some nuance to it. And right now, as we're talking, our market is looking strong. The US market is immensely strong, and if we go to Friday's close with the jobs data that came out, with the 3.2% GDP for Q1, the American economy is super strong. The rest of the world is middling along, but America is half the world. So they can drag us along. And at this point, and I know all the bears are saying this is going to end in tears, and I agree with them, but let's wait for the tears. Let's not
preempt.
Because truthfully, the bears have been telling me it's going to end in tears for years.
I mean, we've spoken about it, and we've said, I mean, it's going to end eventually, and the S&P's like, yeah, whatever, and then we're like, okay,
and at the end of
any
last
day
year,
now.
Yeah, end of last year, it looked like maybe it was, but what we still have is a global environment predominantly of very cheap money, and that is everywhere from the US to South Africa and everywhere in between. We still have cheap money. And that coupled with a very strong American economy, and yes, the American economy is largely strong because of cheap money and tax cuts and all of that. We're juicing it. I get it, but the point is we're juicing it and it's going up, and don't fight the juicer.
Well, okay, that's a wrap on Sell in May. Before we close this off, Simon, I'd like to know your thoughts. Your scenarios for elections, because I have to ask.
So, I mean, to me, the key point around this is that as a country, we are very mature and good at elections, and that's not insignificant. That is an important consideration. We have had the majority party lose provinces, we've had them lose cities, major metros, and they walk away.
It's not a fight.
It is not a fight, and that is not what happens in all democracies around the world, and that is to be celebrated that we do. And with our history, there was every chance not. So that's to be celebrated. I think the election's going to pass. I think the big winners will be the EFF. I think the losers will be the DA, and I think that the ANC will do perfectly well. I think that this idea that Cyril needs a strong mandate, there is no practical way. No, there is. There are practical ways to remove President Ramaphosa as a president of the ANC before the next elective conference in 2022. But you need 5 provinces to bring it forward from their PECs, etc. And then again, and that's just not going to happen. He is there until 2022. There's a lot that might just happen to go in his favor by luck, and I think there's a lot that will go in his favor because he's got a big broom and a head of the NPA and all of those sort of things. So I think he'll be safe in 22. So I'm not. If the ANC got 52%, which I think would be a crazy low number, if they got 52%, is he going to get thrown out? No, they can't. Is every person who ever loses an election, or the people who lost at Nasrec in December 17, unhappy about losing? Of course.
Yeah.
So is Hillary Clinton. So is that man who lost the Brexit vote, David Cameron. Losers in elections are always unhappy, and what do on the first day after the election when they lost? Start plotting how to win.
Yeah.
It's politics. We shouldn't stress it. But I think to me the key point, and there are a ton of small parties, and we'll see how they do, they're always fun. But it broadly, I think the key point is it's just going to be another smooth, boring election. And I think we as a country...
Important, but boring.
Yeah, I think we as a country should celebrate that. And I think it's excellent that we have managed to do it in a moderately mature manner.
And do you anticipate, or do you think it's going to have any significant impact on currency and, by extension,
so I do think, whether the story is true or not, I think a very strong ANC, so high 50s, 58, 59 or more for the ANC will be a strong market responder. But I think what the market's going to come to realize, even if the ANC does less, is that ultimately the ANC is in power and Cyril's there for another many more years, and all is fine. Stop to panic. But a lot of the rally I was expecting for this year, I was only expecting 10 or 15% for the year. We're plus 10 already. I think the rally might slow down for the rest of the year. I think we will start seeing some shifting into the SA Inks. but the market's really going to want to start seeing supporting data come through in terms of GDP, in terms of those sort of numbers, indicating some better data coming through, because
we need that,
and the local consumer remains under pressure.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed in the least, and
an election won't change that overnight.
And our growth will return, but it's going to come back slowly, and it's going to be messy. But broadly, the election will be supportive of what the market has done thus far, and our valuations. Even with the run we've seen so far in 2019, local valuations broadly as a market level remain attractive.
All right. Sam, thank you very much.
Always a
for
pleasure.
your time, and look forward to next month, because elections will be out of the way. We'll have a whole lot of new things to talk about.
It'll be winter.